It's 3 a.m. You're awake again, staring at the ceiling, doing the math on how little sleep you'll get before the alarm goes off. And you've been told in 100 quiet ways that this is a problem. Insomnia, a glitch, something to be fixed with an app, a pill, a stricter bedtime, a darker room. It isn't. For most of human history, waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a disorder. It was the plan. And the only reason nobody ever told you that is that the change happened about 200 years ago, and it erased the memory of itself on the way out. Here's the rule you're measuring yourself against. 8 hours in one solid, unbroken block. Fall asleep, stay under, wake once, refreshed, right on time. Anything less, and somehow you failed the night. Like a law of the body, handed down unchanged from the Stone Age. It isn't. That rule is younger than the light bulb. And the first person to prove it wasn't a doctor. He was a historian.
In the early 1990s, a historian named Roger Ekirch was working in a London archive, reading through the ordinary paperwork of dead people. Court records, diaries, doctor's manuals, prayer books. He wasn't looking for anything about sleep at all, but he kept tripping over the same strange little phrase, first sleep. And then, a few lines later,
in a completely different document, second sleep. Used casually, unexplained, as if any reader would obviously know what it meant. So Ekirch started collecting them. He eventually found more than 2,000 references in a dozen languages, stretching all the way back to ancient Greece and Rome. The Romans even had a name for it, primus somnus, the first sleep. And together, these scattered mentions described a nightly rhythm the modern world has forgotten so completely that most people don't believe it when they first hear it. It went like this. People went to bed a couple of hours after dark, not at a fixed clock time, but when the day's light and the day's work ran out. They slept. That was the first sleep. Then, around midnight, they woke. Not with a jolt, not in a spiral of worry, just awake, calm. For an hour, sometimes 2. And then they lay back down for the second sleep. And slept on until dawn. For thousands of years, there was an hour that belonged to no one. And almost no one alive today remembers it was ever there.
So what did people do with the spare, wakeful hour in the dead middle of the night? Just about everything. They prayed. Some prayer books actually contain devotions written specifically for this waking hour. They tended the fire and checked the animals. They talked, quietly, with whoever shared the bed. And in an age when a whole family might sleep in a single room, that hour was often the only truly private time a couple had. A French physician's manual from the 1500s advised couples that the best moment to conceive a child was not at the end of an exhausting day, but after that first sleep. When rested, they would, in his words, do it better. Some people rose and visited neighbors. Some sat up and brewed a drink. Others simply lay in the warm dark and let their thoughts wander, half dreaming, in no hurry to be anywhere. This wasn't a secret, and it wasn't fringe. Charles Dickens still dropped the phrase first sleep into a novel in 1840, confident every reader would understand it. Within 2 or 3 generations, they wouldn't. The words would fall out of the language entirely, because the thing they described had quietly disappeared.
Now, you could hear all of that and file it under quaint history, a dead habit, like powdered wigs, gone for good. Except it isn't gone. It's still in you. And we know that because of an experiment. In the early 1990s, a sleep researcher at America's National Institute of Mental Health, Thomas Wehr, wanted to know what human sleep does when you take the modern world away from it. So he took a small group of healthy volunteers and changed exactly one thing about their lives for a month. He gave them long nights. 14 hours of darkness every single night, roughly the length of a winter night, back before we learned to light it up. For the first week, the volunteers slept like the exhausted modern people they were, around 11 hours straight, paying down a sleep debt they didn't know they were carrying. But by the fourth week, with no instruction from anyone, their sleep reorganized itself. It split in two. A first block of sleep, then a gap of 1 to 2 hours, awake in the middle of the night. Then a second block until morning. The exact pattern from Ekirch's diaries, rebuilt from scratch by the body alone. The first block was the deeper one. The second, lighter and dreamier, thick with the REM sleep where our most vivid dreams live. But the midnight gap was the strangest part of all. Wehr measured the volunteers' hormones while they lay awake and found low levels of stress hormones and a rise in prolactin, the same soft, drifting chemistry you feel in the last moments before you fall asleep. The people awake at midnight weren't anxious. They were serene.
Wehr described the state as something not unlike meditation. The old hour hadn't only survived on paper, it was still written into the body, waiting for a long enough night to switch it back on. So where did the hour go? There's no villain in this story. There's just light. Starting in the 1700s and 1800s, artificial light poured into human life. First gas lamps, then the electric bulb, and the night stopped being a wall you hit at sundown. Evenings could stretch. Coffee houses stayed open late. The hours after dark turned into hours you could spend, and a culture falling in love with efficiency was not about to leave them to sleep. And there was a second force, quieter than the light: the clock. Factories ran on scheduled shifts. Trains left at a fixed minute. Time itself became money. In a world like that, a night broken into pieces with an idle hour loose in the middle of it didn't look natural. It looked like waste, like something to be optimized away. So it was. Bit by bit, the night got compressed. The first sleep slid later. The waking hour got squeezed thinner and thinner. And the second sleep shrank down to a few resentful minutes of snoozing after the alarm. It was only in the late 1800s, just as the old pattern finished dying, that waking in the middle of the night first became a medical complaint, a thing to diagnose, a symptom with a name. Nothing had changed inside the human body. What changed was the night around it, and our idea of what a night was supposed to be. Which means the thing that pulls you out of sleep at 3 a.m., the thing you've been trained to dread, may not be a fault in you at all. It may be a seam, the old rhythm showing faintly through the new one. Your body reaching in the dark. For an hour it kept faithfully for thousands of years, in a world that quietly took it away, and then told you that you were the one who was broken. None of this is a prescription. Historians still argue about how universal the two sleeps really were, and none of us can uninvent the light bulb, or the alarm clock, or the meeting at 9. But it does leave you with something small and kind to carry into the dark. The next time you wake, clear-eyed and calm, hours before you're allowed to be, you don't have to reach for your phone and start counting everything you've lost. You can lie still and let that hour be what it was for almost everyone who ever lived before you. Not a broken night, just the quiet hour. The one that always belonged to no one. And for a little while, belongs to you.